I'd like to make two things clear very quickly. First off, please do not mistake the mummies and the beings found in this episode for the three-fingered mummy found roughly in the same place in Peru. I like to make that very clear because there's very little information on what I'm about to discuss, but that has nothing to do with the three-fingered mummy found in Peru. I'll put the picture up right now of what I'm not talking about, just to make it clear. Secondly, as we jump right into it, there seems to be a constant cover-up of how mummies are found, where mummies are found in different parts of the world. And it seems to be that it's all linked to some type of government agency or some type of front for a governmental agency. All right. Now, I'm not saying that because I want to make it seem like the government's doing all this stuff to keep things quiet, but ultimately, when you trace back the links and the trails of a lot of these companies that employ these archaeologists, and then all of a sudden these archaeologists just kind of disappear out of thin air, and then these companies immediately shut down or go broke coincidentally. Each and every single time there's some type of mummy found within an ancient structure, whether it's in Egypt or in Peru or in Mexico or in many places in Europe or in Russia, you name it. It's almost immediately just shunned and then disappeared. You never hear from the archaeologists again. You try to research them. You don't find anything like relevant whatsoever. It's very scarce. You'll find something on them. And there doesn't seem to be any interviews or anything like that. So I just want to clear the air with that. Now, let's jump right into it. This is big because not only do I have pictures, which are very difficult to find, but I also have lots of information on the people and how they interacted when they found these different things, these different skeletons and bodies and so on. Now, let me just say as well, I'm not naive either, so I'm going to play devil's advocate in some cases because, again, in the day and age where we have Photoshop and things that could be faked, I don't want to deceive people as well. I want to make that very clear. I want you guys, the viewer or the listener, to decide for yourselves. Now, I'm putting the link in the description if you're watching on YouTube because I want you guys to look at the source of where I got this information from and decide for yourself. With that being said, there were photos a couple years ago that surfaced on the internet of mummified bodies of EBEs or aliens found in a cave in the Nazca plateau in Peru. Okay, and again, that's what I mentioned earlier about there being a misunderstanding about the three-fingered being found in Nazca in Peru, and then there's also the Nazca lines and things like this. So I don't want you guys to get confused, but what does kind of help my case in a certain sense, or my argument, so to speak, is that do you guys notice how there are constant, very strange, ancient structures, ground drawings, hieroglyphs, scriptures, and ultimately bodies that are found in Peru then suddenly covered up? I mean, you then have to ask yourself, why does the CIA have so many safe houses in Peru? That's the question ultimately. Secret safe houses. Why do they have so many safe houses there? Maybe because they need a strategic military advantage, but in Peru? I guess if you check the surrounding nations around, I don't know. I'm not trying to act like I know everything. All I'm saying is that in itself is a little bit fishy. So, according to dailymysteries.com, and again, these guys have some galls to keep these photos up because it's very hard to find them on the internet. So, a couple of gentlemen discovered these bodies and these giant skeletons as well. Now, this is from a cave in Nazca Plateau. So, a gentleman, according to dailymysteries.com, by the name of Mario, and I quote, has searched for the remnants of ancient civilizations on the Nazca Plateau since 1990. In his words, he found a lot of mysterious places in his quests, claiming that he had been exploring the inhospitable mountains for many years, exploring the caves, and reading all the books related to the plains of Nazca and the ancient civilizations there. When he discovered the entrance to this particular cave, he immediately realized that it was something like a tomb. Inside the cave, he found two sarcophaguses, or two sarcophagi. In one, there were various objects that are not spoken of, that by the way, just to quickly say, he won't speak about. And in the other are two mummies of medium growth and many mummies of small humanoids. The largest mummy in the sarcophagus was lying nearby with some white powder. Mario did not want to inform his government or official scientists of his findings because he perhaps rightly worried that nobody would know about his discovery and possibly his life could be in danger. Jamie Masson said that Mario had forbidden him to shoot and take pictures and refused to show the cave in which the sensational find was found. Likewise, he refuses to hand over the objects found in the first sarcophagus. Okay, let me just say, and that's an end quote. Let me just say very quickly, if you refuse, and I applaud these guys for not wanting to go to the authorities or the officials or something like this, but if you refuse to hand these things over, listen, if they want it, they'll get it. It's sad to say, but it's true. When you have a coalition of human beings, the way that the government is formed, believe me when I tell you, whether it's through legal means or use of force, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, when they want it, trust me, they'll find it, or they'll find a way to get it from you. Sad, but true. Which only makes you think, why are a lot of these people who are discovering these technologies and these beings being allowed to live? And that's a terrible question that I have to ask, but it's ultimately the truth. And I think it's because there's a slow leakage of information that's purposely being done to subconsciously prepare us for what is coming. All right. With that being said, Mario did end up taking pictures, as I've been putting up, and I'll put up more because there's quite a few. But he refuses to say which cave he found it in because he fears the cave will be destroyed or something like this. I don't blame him. Because again, like I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, you look at all the cover-ups from all these coincidental, I guess you could say, ancient structures or things like this that government agencies or men in black suits come to and literally make everybody else get off this so-called archaeological site, and then it gets taken over by an unknown company or some company that no one's ever heard of before, and then it's just disappeared. Guys, I want to make something very clear, and I don't think I've mentioned this enough. We're all human, all right? And you might say, okay, what do you mean by that? What I mean is that you and I are no smarter than the people running the country we live in, and vice versa. So put yourself in the position of a government official that's been given the task of keeping this stuff secret. What do? First off, you come in as a representative of either a no-name company or a dummy company that the government has then set up specifically for the takeover and so-called cleanup of sites like these. You come in and then you say to the archaeologist there, or to the gentleman, in this case, the gentleman that found it, if it even came to that in this case, but you say, we're taking over this site. We have all the official warrants and papers to do so. You guys got to go. Take nothing with you. Give us your phones. Give us your cameras. We got to delete everything. We're not going to explain to you why. And then if somebody asks why, it's the same old answer every single time. Pardon my French here, I'm about to say, but it's the same old line that every single person has been told. And I quote, "Fuck you, it's classified." That's what they're told every time. It's even gotten so popularized, that phrase, that it's being put into movies. And it's been like that for 10, 15 years now. Clearly, Hollywood got it from somewhere, right? That line. With that being said, these images are mind-blowing. They really are. And again, I'm trying to be as transparent as possible. I'm trying to play both sides of the fence here because I want to offer myself as well as you guys an alternative perspective on what actually might be going on here. But what I want to talk about next has to do with the fact that these beings, or these bodies of beings, seem to directly line up with ancient Sumerian drawings. So I'm putting up pictures right now as I speak of these ancient Sumerian drawings. Guys, at this point in time, when you look at the drawings or the engravings, it's very simple what it is. It's humans or Sumerians from those times praising these gods or beings coming down from their so-called ship, which we now know to be a UFO ship, with this extraterrestrial or multiple of them being crowned and praised as if they were gods. And I mean, humans were pretty, I guess you could say, naive at the time as a race in general. So it's the same idea that if we as humans start interplanetary space travel and we find more primitive beings that are much more, I guess you could say, less advanced than us, and we come down in our ship, we'd be viewed as gods as well. It's the same idea. And these beings don't know whether their agenda was good or bad, but regardless, they seem to have been praised. Now, what strikes me the most is that these beings taken in the pictures of what this gentleman has found within the cave this cave in Peru matches the drawings of so many, not just books of what a lot of people have translated through hieroglyphs and scriptures, but matches the drawings of what so many cultures have described to be gods. Now, I don't want to say that these are Anunnaki, if you want to call it, but it seems to starkly resemble that. And I don't want to distort any information, but all I'm saying is that there seems to be something with the very widening crown around the head of this being, as well as what seems to be like gold that this being wears in a sort of godlike manner, if you want to call it. Now, it's interesting because if you follow the Anunnaki even a little bit, what you'll notice is that based on the research you do or the videos you watch, the Anunnaki for some reason seem to, at least according to what we can come up with from collect from what our findings have been, is that they seem to be all over and in love with gold. Maybe the gold is a particular mineral that they ran out of in their planet and they need it to function, or they need gold to power something. Excuse me. I don't know. I honestly don't know, but it seems like gold, if you had it, you seem to be in a being or in a position of power to these creatures. That's all I can say about it. And I'm not making this up because the images clearly show that. Now, let's move on because I want to talk about something else that connects a little bit, believe it or not, to the Bible. So, a different set of gentlemen, again, this is still dailymysteries.com, and the images are from there as well that I'll be putting up. Another set of gentlemen have found a large skull that seemed to have some type of breathing apparatus around the mouth and that it needed to breathe. Believe it or not, and I don't want to confuse people, but it kind of reminds me of the film Prometheus, where these large beings needed something to breathe because they couldn't breathe on planet Earth or something like this. But they were so large, it's not even funny. Now, there's a lot of things that I can connect this to simply because it only makes sense logically. Now, these beings may have in fact been the reason why there are so many large steps that are not really made for humans. Steps that seem to, I guess you could say, fit that of beings that are 30, 40 feet taller than us. And that's how big it seems to be. There's also, pictures of mummified giants that seem to have leaked as well from different places. As I'm looking here, I'm putting the pictures up right now. But according to dailymysteries.com, and I quote, since the Anunnaki themselves were human titans, / were much larger than humans, / the giants or Nephilims were born from the union of man and Anunnaki. Nephilim means in the language of the old Hebrews, fallen gods. They created a mini image of us. Only the length of time did not give us the wine, so to speak. That time didn't age well in the sense that we didn't fully understand our human ancestral past in the ways I guess they hoped we did. However, and I quote, the old Sumerian texts in the Bible, which came into existence a long time later, showed that only a few were gifted with it, ... end quote. And what they're trying to say here essentially is that very few people were given the knowledge or privileged enough to have the knowledge to talk about this. and I've spoken about the Book of Enoch before. There's actually 3 books. Why they're not considered canon or original by the Vatican is beyond me. I'm sort of mind baffled by it in a certain sense. And I've been over this before and pretty recently, so I don't want to go into it like crazy. But again, I can't help but think that these giants, or these were the giants that are written about in the Bible, in the Book of Enoch. The Nephilims, the giants, the fallen angels, whatever you want to call them. They're so abnormally big that it's not even funny. And then the thing about this, both the blue beings and humanoids in the Peru cave and these giants, is that there's pictures of them, there's some type of announcement, and then all of a sudden they're gone. All of a sudden you have no idea where they went. Like, if you can't follow up with it on the news, it never even made the mainstream news, and there's no trail. So here's what I want to say. The fact that there is no trail might indeed be the trail itself. And what I mean by that is, let me just phrase it another way. The fact that there's no evidence of these things ever existing, except for some pictures and some reporting, might actually be the evidence in and of itself. Because again, like I said before, we're all human. The people in the government are all human. So how would you cover this up? You would provide as little evidence to the public as possible. But if pictures got out there, you would let them stay out there, or you'd make them very difficult to find because of how real they are. So what do? That in itself acts as the evidence. Now, okay, you could also say, Dave, you're just talking, you're just saying what you want to believe. Maybe. But again, it's a 50-50 toss-up here. Because these images don't seem to be photoshopped to me by any stretch of the imagination. Especially, you're telling me that images that are photoshopped are so hard to find? You'd think that if they were photoshopped, people would want them to be found on the internet. And so that's where my perspective comes from. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to create a conspiracy or a proposal or a theory where there is none. All I'm saying is that if they were photoshopped or edited, you'd think that they'd be pushed all over the internet for some type of usage of disinformation. Because the government knows by now. The government knows the internet is the new format of which they want to push their propaganda BS. And on this show, I proudly say that I do my best to play both sides of the perspective. Very simple. It's as easy as that. So, again, the pictures of these giants have come up all over the place. Now, the interesting thing as well is that they tend to have, seemingly based on what these gentlemen were able to find before things got covered up, and I quote, they tend to have a double row of teeth, 6 fingers, 6 toes, and like humans, came in different colored races with respects to their skin and things like this. The teeth in the front of the jaw are regular molars. Heads usually found are elongated, believed due to longer than normal lifespan. And end quote. Now, what's interesting about that is that because the heads are abnormally larger than that of humans, and not just their height, but the whole body, it signifies the fact that they are created biologically and naturally, at least that we think so, to live a prolonged life. Now, I want to connect this back to something, because within the Bible, it speaks about how the giants were able to live long, partly because the larger their body was, the more their body could take internally, because everything was just more powerful by nature. Now, again, everything is all relative too, with respects to how small or how big you are, but the idea that scientists in today's day and age have said is that if humans were to prolong their lives biologically through the use of natural evolution or through artificial evolution, through the use of us helping to speed up our own process, we would have to have a little bit bigger heads than we do now. Scientists have said that, and that's got nothing to do with what I'm saying here. All I'm saying is that everything seems to match up. It's almost like it's kind of right in front of us. All we need is for the government to confirm it. That's all it is at this point. Now, I'm not saying I'm waiting for the government to do so, because that would be, I think at this point, unrealistic, even though I think we're getting closer to the truth. I still think that to admit all that would be a little unrealistic, but you know what I mean. So, with all of these things in mind, I want you guys to come up with your own conclusion. I'm just here to present the information. I don't believe there's any right or wrong answer, especially when things are so old. Oh, and by the way, I do want to mention that when they predated these skeletal bones, it seems to have been that the timing in which they seem to have died matches, or these giants at least, matches directly with the ancient Sumerian civilization existing. So clearly, the Sumerians praised these beings. Again, why it doesn't make mainstream news, why it doesn't get more coverage, you tell me. Excuse me. I think you and I equally and unequivocally know the answer to that, ultimately. That's what I honestly think. So, again, let me know what you guys think, because it's just, it's so breathtaking to see these things being discovered. And let's just say that some of it is actually, in fact, misinformation. At the very worst, or at the very least, let's say it is. Not all of it is, though, because it has to be misinformation in a lot of ways. In general in life, misinformation is created based on the fact that there's some factual evidence surrounding it. Because, and I know that might not make sense, but what I'm trying to say is that people, particularly governments in today's day and age, and different governmental agencies around the world, would not create something out of thin air just for the sake of creating it. They always create BS based on a little bit of truth, just to keep people at bay. So the core foundation might have a little bit of truth in it, but it's kind of like a semi-nothing burger or a BS sandwich wrapped with a little bit of truth inside of it. You got to go through so much BS that once you get to the part that's the truth, you don't really believe it because you've been through so much BS. It's simple, guys. At this point, again, it's super simple. So let me know what you guys think, because there's a lot that could be connected here between the large stairs, the Ollantaytambo stairs, hopefully I pronounced that right, and which I've spoken about in another episode that'll be coming out soon. Between the connection of this existing around the same time that the ancient Sumerian civilization did, it seems a little too coincidental to be something that's all kind of split apart and scattered. But again, I'm doing my best to take the evidence that is available, even in the most limited fashion, to try to put it together to present to you guys. So again, thank you so much for watching or listening. Please like, subscribe, and share, and we will catch you guys next time. Thank you.